In this video, we're going to create a turnaround. You should pose your character. Right now, my character doesn't even have a rig on it, so this will be a very boring turnaround. That's okay. We can come back later and fix it. I'm going to make a pedestal. It's not required. It's just something you do because it aligns with what everyone else does. And your pedestal might be something more unique than this. Maybe it's a desk or a chair that's gripping onto the last space pack. Next, I'm going to increase the surface size of this pedestal. Right now it's 20, something 60, nice and smooth. Cap subdivisions, I don't need a cap up there. Can apply Arnold shader to it. Right click, assign new material, and pick an Arnold one. This way you'll see your character reflected. AI standard surface. Give it a good name. Right now, platform, I think is an okay name. Let's hit render and see what we get. If you click on the film gate and also the resolution gate, film gate talks about what is the live camera area, while the resolution gate is the setting, 960 by 540. And we'll upscale this to a higher definition in a few moments from now. By having both of these selected, you then see what's the active area in the camera when it comes time to render. That helps you position your character. What you see is what you get. Next, the animation. I'm going to create a box, and the reason I'm creating this box, this is what I'll parent the camera to. If I hit render right now, that box will render. We don't want that box to be in the renderer. So to make that box not render, go under the second tab for that box and find the render stats for that box right there. And just uncheck things. By doing this, you can have objects in the scene that you could see but don't render. And that's how you make a box not render. Why do I want a box not to render? Because I'm going to attach the camera to it and just rotate around the box, and the camera's going to follow, and this way we'll get our turnaround without moving anything. This is great when you have things in separate pieces and you don't want to move the character. You just want to move the universe around the character. The other way works too, where definitely bone system, root-most bone system, connect it to, parent it to here, the platform, and rotate the platform around with a stationary camera. Totally doable, totally worthwhile. Here, I'm going to create a camera, and the type of camera that I'll create is one with an aim. What that creates is a camera with an aim, right? While they're both selected, you can point your camera with an aim right around there. Aim it however you want to. I now deselected the aim and just selected the back of the camera. If you have trouble selecting them, they're always available in the outliner. Next, I'm going to parent the camera. Shift-click on the box and press P key. When you rotate the box, the camera will follow. And that's how we're going to create our turnaround using this technique. At frame 0, I'll press S key for the box. And if I want a 10-second turnaround, that's 300 frames, so I need to see frame 300. I'll type 300 there on the inner number. That means all the way over here in the timeline, I'm clicking and dragging. I'll then rotate this object 360 degrees. It's okay if you don't do it on the first turn. And how do I know I'm going around where 360 is? If you have the channel box open, you'll see right here along the rotation along the y-axis. 356. I was so close, but now I'll just type in 360, hit enter, and then press the S key, which records the keyframe. Hitting play, camera goes around, goes around. You'll see a slight stutter. And you could say, well, maybe that's the viewport stutter as it goes around here and comes back again. It's actually in the graph editor, the type of line that's being created for this. It's being nice. It's creating this transition to slow down. We don't want that. We want a consistent rotating around. Going to Windows, Animation Editors, Graph Editor, pops up in the Graph Editor. See, this is the curve that was created naturally in Maya. And this is great for having those slow ease outs and ease ins. We don't want that in this case because we're trying to get a seamless rotation around here. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to select all the keys. And then I'm going to select linear tangent. And that makes a sharp line, a regular slope, without any ease ins and ease outs. I could close this window. And now when it's previewed, you can see it doesn't slow down. It just goes around and goes around and goes around. We're almost there. Starting at frame 0, it ends here. Let's see what the cameras see. Go under Panels, Perspective, Camera 1. And this is what Camera 1's seeing. We need to pull out a little bit. Since this is Camera 1's viewport, it says right down here, if you zoom out, you're also moving the camera. Any viewport is a camera viewport, and when you select the camera that we're animating, that's the one that when we orbit it out will be affected. And there we go, around and around and around. Maybe we'll look at the pivot point for the aim. And where is that aim? Is it in the center at 0, 0, 0? Let's type it in here. X along the Y is fine, but along the Z has to be 0. That looks better. Let's zoom out again. There we go. Perfect, right? Let's turn back on these two, see what we're getting. And now I'll just move the camera top as needed. The back of the camera. Hit play. Time to render this out. Go under Render Settings, which is this icon here. And if you don't see that icon, it's under Windows, Rendering Editors, Render Setup. Click on Render Settings. And clicking on that opens up the same window. A lot of clutter though. So why just click on this icon, Render Settings, less clutter on the screen. I'm going to fill out this form, and this sets up the files to be rendered out. File name, let's call it spin, since it's a spin around. File format, PNG files. Though, since this is an Arnold rendering, Arnold doesn't respect the alpha in the background. If you want to be able to see the background, select a different format, such as TIFF. You don't want to skip alpha. Since this is an animation, here, I'm going to select name pound extension. This lets Maya know that you want more than one frame. You want a sequence of frames. Start at what frame? Start at frame 0. End at what frame? I'm ending at frame 200, probably 58 or 59 would work. Render each frame. This is a very important selection, renderable camera. Select camera 1, because we want to see that rendered out. The size of the rendering, I'm going to select HD 1080, and this form is done. One last thing before we actually render. I'm going to select the AI Sky Dome light, and under its attributes, Control A, I'm going to make sure the background doesn't render by scrolling on down to the visibility and to the camera, not 100%, but 0%. When it's set that way, you get all the light from the Sky Dome with an alpha in the background, and we'll be able to see that this is alphaed out in the next application when we assemble this as a movie. The last step is to go under Rendering, Render, Render Sequence, and that little flyout box here, because you just have to double check to make sure it still says camera 1. Sometimes it won't say the camera that you selected, so double check it before burning away time rendering. An alternative output folder, otherwise it's going to save it within the images folder. I'm going to just make a new folder within the images folder, and I'll just call this test turnaround. I'll just say it's a turnaround. I'll double click to make sure I'm within that folder, and I'll click on select, and the rest is just waiting for the rendering to happen. Now that frame 0 through 299 is rendered out, I'm going to use After Effects. You can use Premiere, Final Cut Pro, wherever your favorite video editing software is. I'm just using After Effects. In After Effects, I'm going to import the file. And this workflow is similar among all the other video editing applications. You go under File, Import File, you locate the file. You click on the first image in the file. Don't select them all. Just the first image. And somewhere should be a check mark saying sequence, whether it's PNG sequence, if it was a bunch of PNGs. In this case, it's TIFFs as a sequence. Making sure that check mark is selected. And click on Import. In After Effects, select Straight Unmatted to get the alpha channel. And then drag your asset down to your main timeline. And there's your image. I'm going to press the space bar in After Effects to preview the turnaround. And across 10 seconds, it's going to turn around. And because we cut off the last frame, we don't see a little jitter, a little stall out there. Now that you have a turnaround, if you want the sequence to go in reverse in After Effects or your other video application, I'm going to select this layer and go under Layer, Time Reverse Layer. Now it could go the other way. If we're not liking how slow it goes around, and we're not going to be around to drag the scrubber ourselves, I can see I could correct the centering of the box. So I'll do that on the next pass. And you'll find some type of time stretch or remap. Time stretch here. If I stretch time to be half as much, so at frame 150, and this is where it ends, right there. I'll truncate my workspace to there, and now the turnaround's faster. So use your video editing skills to add a little more to your scene. Here I also have created this background of circles going around. So if you feel some UI adds to the effect, add it in. In After Effects, this could be a 3D layer. And if I make it a 3D layer, I could rotate that 3D layer to be a little bit below the base. I'll move it down, and I'll pull it towards me a little bit to center it. And how about scaling it up also? When you're finished with whatever turnarounds you're doing, feel free to add a little more to it to create an environment or a mood that's appropriate.